Well. I may have just broken a rule here. Well, it was a while back. This little this little effect. I think it's pretty nice, you know? But then I realized I broke a rule. I broke a big fat rule, actually. So I was kind of looking through some of my old videos to make a clip out of it. And I noticed that I broke a rule. And that rule was, well, not so much breaking a rule, given it's based on the law of mentalism, but I violated the rule. I violated the rule and I made a mistake. That would be more accurate. So when I made this mistake, I realized that I had I told you guys to imagine a bad scenario where you lose a bunch of money. And then I went on the rest of the video on what to do. And that, right there and right then, I realized that I broke the rule. I have to pull up a little bit. I broke the rule, and I broke that rule big time. Why is it not going forward? Why is it not going forward? There we go. I broke that rule, and I broke that rule big time. More like very big time. And that's not good, because breaking the rules, it's not okay. Well, I mean, I technically didn't break the rule. I just did something that I shouldn't have done. And I shouldn't even be regretting it or talking about it. In fact, that's kind of something that I'm doing right now. So I got to put my money where my mouth is, and I got to owe you guys an explanation. Mind the spitting and hacking, mind you. You see a little cigarette cherry right there. So as I was making that mistake, well, it wasn't really a mistake. I like to view it as a happy accident. Something that will end up working out to all of our favors. That's my mindset. Is that even when something bad happens, or when a problem happens, it ends up being an opportunity in disguise. It ends up working out way in my favor. I've had that mindset for a while now. It just doesn't always work out the way I want to, and it can be pretty annoying on the back end. And sometimes I can lose my patience. I can actually lose my patience quite a bit sometimes. Which is part of what got me into this practice, because, you know, it wasn't so much my lack of patience, more so just wanting the manifestations to happen. And I wasn't really seeing any signs. It was just kind of dead end after dead end. And then finally, there seems to be some kind of break. Some kind of break in the limitations. And then, psych, it's just a bit of a longer dead end. But a dead end, nonetheless. So I think that'll about cover it for this one. And, well, we're still running a little short, so I want to give you something nice and long. Totally not what she said. Sometimes you just got to be a little immature. You got to have the curiosity of a child, or so they say. And I'm going to roll me up another cigarette, because I think the effect looks pretty nice. Yes, I know, I'm rolling up a cigarette. You know, not the best for my health, but like I said, even the worst decisions that I make, and even the problems that happen on the front end, do end up working out on the back end pretty well. Only thing is my patience, and that's part of it. You gotta be patient. You just gotta be willing to let go. There's a difference between being patient and just waiting and getting frustrated while you're waiting. That's not the approach to take. The approach to take is, well, it's acceptance. That would be the first approach to take. However, the ideal approach to take, the better approach to take, I should say, is, well, it's acceptance, and then, accepting in a good way, realizing that this actually works out in your favor. And mind you, it's all just mindset, that struggles end up working out in your favor. It's mindset. It really is. And, being raised by some rather impatient parents and, growing up in a military community where patience can sometimes be in a bit short supply. Trust me when I say patience can be very much in short supply, particularly with those that outrank you. Well, if you're you and you are in the lower rank, well, you gotta be patient. I shouldn't say you gotta be patient. You could just go AWOL or talk back to your superiors and, take that for what it is and, for better or worse. Not necessarily the smartest thing to do, but I guess while we're hot on the topic, there's a difference between intelligence and wisdom. And likewise, intelligence does not guarantee success, just as hard work does not guarantee success. Because both of them, neither of them, are guaranteed to bring about the fruition of your energy into the manifestations that you want without the proper mindset. The mindset is what makes or breaks success. I've had a few experiences where, I put in quite a bit of work, quite a bit of dedication. And then because of my mindset, I end up saying or thinking something, more so just kind of, quietly stewing and thinking of something really mean to say. And then when I say it, well, that's when all hell breaks loose and I see everything fall apart in front of me. And another piece of advice is don't try to take back your words. Don't try to, backtrack or apologize or any of that. Accept that you made a mistake and this mistake is going to cost you dearly. And, hopefully you can salvage whatever's left. You shouldn't even salvage it. You should take it as a lesson and as an opportunity in disguise. Cough, cough, cough. And I'm also a little bit tired right now. I think I got about 3 hours of sleep the night before last night. So that was a Monday that I got about 3 hours of sleep. And I was up and working within about a couple hours. I actually had to drive there. The drive there was actually pretty nice, but it's pretty nice, actually. It's the, can you see my spooky hands? No, you can't. It was the, should I take off my hoodie? Yeah, I'll keep the hoodie on. It gives the whole persona, sign of silence. And there was actually one where I was making that video of me shooting out in the desert. Well, about a couple years prior to that, it was actually over a little couple of years at this point, I went out shooting in the desert and, there ended up being someone a bit out in the distance that I didn't notice at first. I mean, they should be aware that, it is a public area that's designated for shooting. And shooting is perfectly allowed there with whatever weapon you can legally muster up. And mind you, here in Arizona, the state laws are a little different. It's constitutional carry here for the most part, unless you're considered mentally ill or whatever. And even then, you know, cops usually don't look too far into it, as long as you just don't go openly spilling the beans. We gotta knock on wood for that, not to screw anyone over that, you know, could perhaps be thinking of something stupid to do. I have some linen clothing, so that's wood enough, right? It's, you know, it comes from plants and all that, and the dye and everything. It's earthy colors, some earthy undertones. So anyways, as I decided to keep talking, I'm not sure how the mic is going to turn out on this, because I didn't want to connect the mic because that could get in the way of holding up the camera, which is actually just my phone. Well, we shall see. We shall see what comes to pass. So, I think with that being said, we're about done. Let's see how many minutes we're in. We're about 11 minutes in. 11:22. Well, it's a little bit after, but take care, guys. And happy hunting. Oh, and by the way, I do appreciate some of the new comments I've been getting. One of them was something about me leaving a body in the bathtub. No bodies there. I mean, at least no human bodies. As to whether there's some spiritual, I guess, non-corporeal beings lingering around, I wouldn't put it past that. I mean, that is where I was, you know, dumping some remains, and, you know, also put a little bit of soap in there to kind of soak up some negative energy. And, well, that can happen sometimes, as far as, you know, soaking up some negative energy. And I figured, well, while I'm hot on the topic, I'm probably going to go back in and, I don't know, do something to soak up some negative energy. I actually have some black salt that I bought about a couple years ago, give or take. It was actually more like 3 years ago, and I did a little bit of thing with it, and it turned out to actually work pretty good in my favor. Yeah, see, with me and my my astrological placements, and along with some of the pretty not so liked by Saturn decisions that I've made, it can take a little while to, you know, get things back on track. Saturn does have a way of delaying things. And when you violate the law of Saturn, which, you know, it happens sometimes. We all make mistakes. However, that's no excuse from Saturn. Making a mistake is not an excuse. Saturn demands. And when you don't give in to Saturn's demands, well, you pay. Just as when Jupiter had to overcome the difficulties of Saturn, it was Rhea. Rhea was the one that hit him. Is it Rhea? Yes, it was Rhea. Rhea was the one that had to put a little stone in place of Jupiter. That's very telling of the astrological polarity between Cancer and Capricorn. See, with Capricorn, that's the stone wrapped up in the blanket that Saturn swallowed. Well, that's Earth element. And then if you look at the sign of Cancer, in which Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, you look at the card, the Chariot, and that's kind of how Cancer works. It's got to go around. It's got to take the more difficult path, the roundabout path. Sure, it's not the path of least resistance. And my phone is on very low battery, so there we go. It's not the path of least resistance that you can get with Aries or Sagittarius. No, Cancer's got to do a little roundabout. Cancer's got to follow the rules of Saturn to be successful, just as Jupiter had to follow the rules of Saturn, being hidden and staying in the shadows until he finally had the chance to defeat Saturn and free Saturn's children, to which Jupiter then ends up going on himself to have a bunch of his kids with both the divine feminine beings and the mortals. So that's it's a little bit of happy hunting for you. A cigarette. I'm giving you a little bit of stuff sometimes. That'll be it. Take care.